Hello and welcome to Sim.pc, where right now is 30 past 1. Yes, it's quite late, we're not really running with the staple, but there is a reason for that now. The reason for that is that I've been drinking all my tea, I've been talking for half an hour, I'd say, something along those lines, and I've been making about 6 or 7 takes on this, because I just cannot get my head around it, which to me is really interesting and really funny in one way, because it's sort of a challenge, but simultaneously, I'm really irritated about it. Because it brings up so many different perspectives and so many different points of views, which I can't seem to pinpoint down. And, you know, not that all of my videos that I've ever done has been with a red thread going through them, right? I mean, I try, but due to me working with a raw format, I don't really have a script to follow. I might have some key phrase, might have a key word that's inside of the title, right, that I'm working off of. I might have a certain interpretation of the topic that I present, and then I tend to ramble off from there and try to give it full circle in the end. Right? I know that. And I know that sometimes that doesn't always work. But the 6 or 7 or 8, might even be 8 takes that I've done so far are just all over the place. Because this is such a topic that is all over the place. And whilst I'm simultaneously trying not to offend anyone, I can't help but feel like I'm offending everyone when I talk about it, right? And no, we're not talking about anything such things as how much income you're supposed to have, or the religion that is the best, or the political party that is obviously superior to anybody else. No, not talking about any of those things. What I'm talking about today, or what I'm trying to talk about, is impression. Yeah, I know, it's hard, isn't it? And some of you might be saying, impression though, an opinion. Have an interpretation of something. That doesn't seem that hard. That doesn't seem that offensive, right? And to you, I would just like to say, I've gone through today talking about that everybody has an opinion that's of equal worth. That's sort of where I started, right? And then I went on a rant about that some people's opinions are more worth than others. Which wasn't what I was trying to get across, but that was exactly what I said for about 15 minutes. And that's not what I'm trying to say. So, you know, I'm trying to establish context right now. I've also talked about that certain opinions or certain people have a hard time expressing their impression of something. Which I do believe is true, but I was talking about that in such a ridiculous way that didn't make any sense. I was also talking about, if I do remember it correctly, it was video A, C, B, D, Q, R, F, and how people are viewing them, and even I got confused to the matter where I forgot everything. But let's try and get into today's subject again. And if I seem a bit irritated or easily agitated, it might be because I've been trying this for the last half hour. Something along those lines, right? So, yeah, let's try again. Now, the basis of what I would like to try and get across here today is the idea that not everyone on Earth has the ability to, or that's wrong again. Let's just roll with it, right? If this is the version that you see, it's the version that I picked. So let's just see where we end up. What I'm trying to say is that some people are better than others at presenting their impression that they have of a certain topic, of a certain movie, of a certain video than others according to society's standards and where on earth you are and which family you were brought up, which religion you're part of, and so on and so forth. There is an immeasurable amount of variables that needs to be taken into consideration. But based on all of these variables, some people will be deemed to be better at expressing their their impression of something than other people. Now, let me try to roll with an example that I've created containing videos. Because I have some of my mates from back home, yeah, that I would deem not to be that good at expressing themselves about their impression of something. And let's just say, in order to illustrate, me and me mates are watching video A. Yeah, I just feel how this is getting off the rails already. But me and me mates are watching video A. Video A is saying something, and we get an impression of what that video is trying to get across. Now, myself, right, I would argue that I have a very easy time to get an expression of something, to get an impression of something, and express that as well in words, in pictures, in whatever medium I'm allowed to do. But I feel like I have a very creative way of utilizing the resources that I have to my to my disposal in order to show off the impression, right, that I have gotten of a certain of watching a certain video A in this case. However, I would argue that many of my mates, instead of making their own impression, or rather instead of articulate and show off their own impression, they go for whatever reason. Might be because they're embarrassed, might be because they don't think it's so cool, might be because they think it's a bit dorky, might be because it's too outrageous, might be because they think it's too abstract, whatever it might be. Could even be boring or too excited. But for some reason, right, they tend to go off to video B instead. And I'm not talking about making a second impression on their own about video A. No, they go to video B that is talking about video A. Okay? So video B is having all of my mates watching, and video B is talking about the initial video A, and describing the impression they had when watching video A. Now, my mates will take the impression that video B described about video A, move back to me, and tell me all about it. Yeah, I know that was a bit abstract and convoluted, but I hope that you followed me through that. I would argue, right, that I'm very happy about that in one way, and I'm horrified by it in another. Because I am a man of, what should we say, I like quote-unquote real diversity, as I like to call it, which is intellectual diversity, diversity of conversation, diversity of perspectives and ideas. So I'm all for that people can access other people's ideas, other people's expressions, other people's perspective. But in the interconnected world, in such a highly connected world that we live in, we've never been more connected than we are right now, as of today, of this moment, as me making this video, ever before in history. And information has never been so easily transmittable before, as it is right now, yet again, in comparison to the rest of history, up until this point. So, and this is sort of where I've got stuck before. So the idea that some people can make videos about a certain topic and distribute that idea, it's good in a sense. However, or rather, it's good in a sense because it does express and diversify the amount of ideas that are out there. Let's just call them influencers, people who do this. So the more influencers there are with different perspectives and different ideas that people take part of and get influenced by, so to say, on paper, right, the better, because that will bring in more perspectives in society into more people and show off to people that it's okay to have more perspectives. But the problem is, though, what is also making me horrified is when my mates, instead of telling me their own initial impression, and instead of mixing their impression with the video's description of what they're quote-unquote supposed to feel, I'm instead presented of a group of mates, close mates of mine, that come up to me and all tell me the exactly same thing that the video told them. And I'm just standing there being like, oh, I had this and this idea, I have this and this impression, what do you think about this and this? And they're all pretty much in unison, just saying the same thing, which makes the group's consensus being one thing, right? And that, in a sense, is diminishing the amount of intellectual diversity in the world, or rather, in our group. And if our group is the majority when joining up with a couple of other mates, then maybe the consensus of that bigger group will also be what my mates saw in that video, which will yet again affect a larger proportion of people, since we're a larger group, because some people joined, but we will still have the same perception of the topic if you look at the majority of people in the group, which in a sense then lowers the amount of intellectual diversity in said group, even though it was bigger now. So that is what makes me sort of horrified. So to get to the meat and potatoes of the video, I'm not here to criticize the amount of influencers in the world or how internally connected we are. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to say is that some people have an easier time to express their impression of something in comparison to others. Now, this is yet again good and bad. It's good because it's the reason why critics exist. It's the reason why art exists, and it's the reason for why lots of different, what should we say, things exist out there. Because some people just tend to have different impressions of the same thing. Either liking it, disliking it, being neutral to it, hate it, detest it, loving it, right? There's all of these different things that you can do when you're watching a piece of art, a video game for that matter. It could be all different things, right? Everybody has a different impression. And by the way, I am of the impression, let's just say, I am of the belief that everybody have an impression of everything. And then it's just a matter of how they express it. You know, some people just argue that, you know, everybody believe in something that everybody don't agree with that they do, but that's just anyway, that's a topic for another time. So it's really good that, you know, art and critics exist because of this reason, because they're very good probably at articulating themselves either in writing or in words or in a visual aid than the painting, when talking about their impression or trying to transmit and translate their impression of something into then words or a visual style. So that's really good. It's also good that other critics can critique that and sort of showing off their view of the same perspective and impression that the creator of the initial work had. So kind of critique the critique of an impression. It's all good, it's all fine, it's all dandy. However, some people, or rather all people, don't have the same, and I was gonna say ability again, it's so bad. I believe that all people probably have the same potential. No, maybe, yes, maybe. This is hard. Everybody probably can reach the same level of expressing their impression of something, but we won't do it exactly the same, all of us. So, okay, let's say it like this. This is probably making it more correct. I believe that everybody has an impression of everything that they express, and now everything they interpret, everything they see, everything they're in contact with. If there was an event that affected everyone on Earth simultaneously, and nobody had the time to talk to anyone before they had their initial impression, I would argue that, yet again, I said it really, everybody would have an impression of that event. It might not be differing a lot between all of us, right? Or it might be differing a lot between all of us, but I would argue that everybody would have an individual impression even before talking to anyone else. Where was I? Yeah. And I also believe that everybody will be able to express that impression that they have of something to the full extent, so to say, to 100% of what they want to express. However, everybody will probably do it in very different ways. So for instance, yet again, some people might do it with the visual aid, some people might do it with words, some people might do it in writing, or in talking, in dancing, in singing, or, you know, whatever. Maybe there are things that people would like to express themselves in that doesn't even exist because no one has even done it yet. Okay, so this is just me trying to put out the context and try to, you know, get everybody on the same train of thought that I am on right now. But so everybody would probably be able to express it. However, due to the world that we live in, the culture that we have, and the even more interconnected culture that we have in the world due to the internet, we sort of streamline the amount of ways that someone can express themselves in. And that's yet again going back to, you know, the idea that social media and the internet and media overall and political issues, political systems are sort of getting streamlined and more globalized, which means that the people who have a very easy time expressing their impression through what is supposed to be, what you would say, both politically and culturally correct and in alignment with culture will have an easier time than those who don't. This video is going in a completely different direction than I initially thought when I was doing this. Which means that some people will be favored in this sense than others. And that means that a particular point of view, a particular perspective will be brought up, which means that it will diminish the amount of intellectual diversity in the world. We probably won't see it as such, we will see it as if it's growing, but that's because we can't even comprehend and fathom the amount that we have already shut out by saying that, oh, you have an impression of something and this is how you would like to express it. However, it's not in alignment with culture, so that's why you probably will be feeling kind of awkward of doing that thing, expressing it in such a way, and you will put that away, and we will instead praise the people who express their immersion and impression in a way that is aligned with our culture. And that's a problem with the globalized world. Wow, we're so far off. Okay, so that's an interpretation, I guess, of this topic. What I wanted to talk about from the beginning, though, and this is, full circle in the sense that I'm not going full circle, which I kind of warned you about in the beginning, if you're still here, mates. Is the thing that my mates did about the video. Because I tend to see more and more people do this, right? Instead of telling me what they think about a book or a movie, they go to a video or they go to an article and they read that or watch that respectively, and then get back to me and talk about it, instead of letting out their own opinion, their own impression of something. And I think that's kind of sad, because yet again, diminishing the intellectual diversity of what we can expect and what we can, the pool of knowledge that we have, so to say. Because if you don't let it out and let me access it, then how will I ever be able to, right? To interact with that sort of idea that maybe only you will have. So I think it's sort of bad that is happening. And what I want to leave you with, because I can't take this anymore, I can't do any more takes, I don't think it will get better, I don't think it will, well, it could very much be worse, but I don't think it could be better than this, at least not from my perspective, right, how I will present it, is that I would just like to say, believe in yourself, and the amount, wow, believe in yourself, how cliche is that, but it's still true, believe in yourself enough that you can talk about an impression that you've had of something, and you shouldn't be feeling awkward in the way that you wishes to express something that you've had an impression of. Because the more unique expressions we have of an opinion, impression, or an experience, the better society will be. In the sense of intellectual diversity. Now, it could be that you're expressing it in a way that directly harms the development of society, which I would, to some degree, talking against myself, but argue that don't do that. But sometimes a revolution is necessary. But let's keep it to the academic and kind of thoughtful revolution then, right? Revolution in the sense of not trying to topple governments and kill everyone, but instead being like, aha, I have a new train of thought that we want to follow, and it's a revolutionary thought. Let's have that instead. But yeah, the more expressions of impressions, opinions, and experience we have in the world, the better. So don't be afraid of expressing your unique impression of something. I know, how abstract was that? And believe me, I've tried to do this more and more concrete over the last 50 minutes now. Have a nice one, mates. I'm gonna leave you here because, yeah, as I said, probably won't get better just with me rambling and babbling on. Have a nice one, mates. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.